Day 29, Standing on What God Has Held Together. I'm Avery, and welcome to Daily Grace. This season, we are walking through a series called Trust, a steady return to God. Take a slow breath with me for a moment. Let your shoulders soften. Let your mind slow down. You do not have to carry the whole day right now. Just this quiet moment. Just this quiet space. Trust often begins in places that once felt fragile, places where things once felt uncertain, places where you wondered if anything steady could remain. Many of us know what it feels like when something important begins to shake: a relationship, a plan, a season of life. Something we once leaned on suddenly feels unstable. And when that happens, it can make everything feel uncertain. We start to question what will last. We start to question what will hold. But something quiet begins to happen over time. Not loudly, not dramatically, just slowly. God begins to hold together what once felt fragile. Not always by restoring things exactly the way they were, but by strengthening something deeper inside us, by teaching our hearts that steadiness does not depend on perfect circumstances. Steadiness grows when we realize we are not holding everything alone. Sometimes we only recognize this after a long season has passed. We look around, and something we thought would fall apart is still standing. Maybe it looks different now. Maybe it feels quieter, but it is still here. And somehow we are still here too. Trust begins to grow in that realization. The realization that what God sustains can endure more than we once believed. Scripture speaks gently into this truth. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." Notice the word sustain. Not rush, not fix everything immediately. Sustain, to hold, to support, to keep something steady over time. God often works in that quiet way, holding, supporting, strengthening what once felt uncertain. There was a season in my life when everything felt delicate. Nothing had collapsed, but everything felt like it might. I remember one evening standing in my kitchen after a long day. The quiet weight of uncertainty had followed me for months. I stood there washing a cup at the sink, and I remember noticing something. Despite all the questions I had carried that season, life had continued. Meals had been made, prayers had been whispered, days had passed. God had been present in small ways I had almost overlooked. I had thought everything was hanging by a thread, but slowly I began to realize something else. God had been holding the thread the whole time. What I thought was fragile had actually been sustained, and something inside me had grown steadier without me even noticing. Trust often grows like that, quietly, gradually, through ordinary days, through small moments of continued grace. We sometimes imagine trust as a strong, confident feeling, but more often it looks like quiet endurance. Waking up, continuing forward, discovering that God has quietly supported us through another day, and then another, and then another. By the time we notice, something inside us feels stronger, not because life became easier, but because we have experienced the steady support of God over time. We begin to stand differently, not rigid, not tense, but grounded. We no longer feel like everything will collapse with the smallest shift because we have lived long enough to see that God holds what we cannot. He steadies what we cannot control. He sustains what once seemed fragile. And this realization brings a quiet kind of peace, not a loud confidence, but calm steadiness. The kind of steadiness that allows you to breathe a little deeper, to loosen your grip on things you once tried to hold tightly, to recognize that you are not standing alone. If you pause today, you may notice small evidence of this in your own life. Something that once felt uncertain is still here. A relationship that healed slowly, a strength you did not know you had, a quiet peace that now visits your heart more often. These are not accidents. These are signs of God's sustaining presence, signs that He has been holding together more than you could see. Trust grows when we begin to notice that. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gently, slowly, steadily. So today, you do not need to force confidence about the future. You do not need to prove your strength. You can simply notice what God has already sustained. Notice the ways He has quietly carried you. Notice the places where that once felt fragile has remained. Trust is not always loud. Sometimes trust simply stands, calm, grounded, held. And that is enough for today. May you move through this day gently. May you remember that trust does not have to rush. God is still steady, and you are still being held. Until next time, this is Avery.